They called him Ezekiel once, before the ashes of betrayal blackened that name, before hope died screaming beneath the eye of terror. Now there's only Abaddon. You do not rise in the grimdark future of the 41st millennium by kindness, not through honor, not by mercy. You rise by claw your way through blood, fire, and the ruins of empire, by never yielding, never breaking, never forgetting what the Imperium took from you. And Abaddon never forgot. Before he was a despoiler, before his name brought planets to their knees, he was first captain of the Lunar Wolves, Ezekiel Abaddon, a giant among transhuman gods, bearing the weight of duty under a golden sun. He was not just a warrior, he was a Warmaster's right hand. Horus' shadow, forged in loyalty, tempered in war. And when the heresy burned across the stars, when half of humanity's champions turned against the Emperor, Abaddon did not hesitate. He followed Horus into the abyss. But this is not a tale of mere loyalty. This is the story of what happens when gods fall, when heroes are shattered, when betrayal breeds something far worse than rebellion. This is the legend of Abaddon the Despoiler. The Great Crusade was a dream dressed in steel. Billions marched beneath the banner of the Aquila, conquering worlds for a vision of unity. Among them, the Lunar Wolves stood proudest, led by the pre-March Horus Lupercal, peerless, beloved, unstoppable. And at Horus' side, Abaddon, towering, wrathful, loyal to a fault. He was the exemplar of the Legion's strength. His presence on the battlefield was like a thunderstorm made flesh. His loyalty was absolute. No warrior believed more in Horus than he did. So when the pre-March fell, when chaos twisted its talons into a Horus soul and turned him against the Emperor, Abaddon followed. But even in that first, terrible moment of the heresy, a seed of doubt stirred within him. Not doubt in Horus, but doubt in the vision. He saw the lies of the Imperium, the blind hypocrisy of the Emperor, a god who claimed he was not one, a father who abandoned his sons to die in silence. The siege of Terra was the crucible. The sky above the Imperial Palace bled fire as traitor legions hurled themselves against the last bastion of mankind. Abaddon fought like a man possessed, carving through his former brothers. Blood slicked the walls of the throne world. Titans fell, gods wept, and in the final hour, aboard the battle barge Vengeful Spirit, Horus faced the Emperor and died. The death was not clean. The Emperor obliterated Horus' soul from existence, an act so absolute it could not be undone. Not even the dark gods could salvage it. For Abaddon, that was the true betrayal. Not the fall to chaos, not the burning of the Imperium, but this, that the Emperor destroyed Horus without mercy, without grief, without even a whisper of forgiveness. Abaddon stood over Horus' corpse and made a vow. He would not kneel, not to gods, not to the corpse on the golden throne, not to fate, and he would never forgive. The traitor legions fled, broken and shattered, into the eye of terror, a realm of madness where time and reality warp into nightmares. For centuries, they rotted, squabbled, betrayed each other. They became monsters, lost to their own hunger. But not Abaddon. He watched, he waited, he sharpened his hatred until it could cut stars. Where others sought favor from the Chaos gods, Abaddon sought only strength. Where others became bloated with gifts, tentacled, mutated, enslaved, Abaddon remained unbroken. He did not ask for power. He took it. One by one, he silenced rivals. One by one, he forged alliances in blood and flame. He found what was left of the sons of Horus, his old legion, now humiliated, desecrated, renamed as the Black Legion, and he burned their shame away. He cast aside Horus' legacy, not to forget, but to become something more. The Black Legion would not live in memory. It would conquer the present. Abaddon the Despoiler was born, not as a new Horus, but as the answer to everything the Warmaster failed to be. His first act was to claim the most cursed weapons in existence, Drachnian, the demon sword that whispers in the tongue of murder, and the Talon of Horus, his former Primarch's lightning claw. Still dripping with remembered betrayal, with one hand, he held the might of chaos incarnate. With the other, he bore the legacy of the dead Warmaster, corrupted, yes, but sharpened anew. He turned to the stars and declared a truth the galaxy would never forget. The long war is not over. It has only just begun. The galaxy did not understand what was coming. The Imperium saw the traitor legions as madmen, doomed to cannibalize each other in the warp. They believed the Eye of Terror a tomb. Abaddon turned it into a forge. 10 times he would strike at the Imperium. 10 Black Crusades. War is not a mere conquest, but of attrition, terror, corruption, and slow, unstoppable entropy. Each one a blade driven deeper into the heart of mankind. Each one a reminder. Chaos does not forget. The Despoiler does not forget. But perhaps the most terrifying truth of all is that Abaddon is not simply the champion of chaos. He is its master. Unlike the demon princes, unlike the fallen lords of old, Abaddon uses the gods of the warp as they try to use him. He balances their hungers against each other. He refuses ascension. He remains mortal by choice, because he knows the moment he becomes a god, he will become a puppet. He wants vengeance, not apotheosis. He wants the galaxy burning, not worshipping. He wants the Emperor dead, not revered. And he will wait centuries, if that's what it takes. So when worlds go dark without warning, when astropaths scream and their eyes melt in their skulls, when the warp pulses and a rift opens across reality, the Imperium knows the name that walks through the fire. Abaddon, not a man, not a monster, something worse. A memory that never died, a hate that never slept. The Talon of Horus lives again, and the galaxy bleeds beneath its shadow. You think 10 crusades were failures? You misunderstand the language of rot. The Despoiler does not fight to win battles. He fights to unravel the stars. It began with fire. It always does. The first Black Crusade came not with fanfare, but with fury. A storm clawing out of the Eye of Terror, driven by what was so absolute it made the warp itself howl in anticipation. The Imperium had forgotten how to fear the traitor legions. They believed them trapped, mad, decaying in the eye like old ghosts. Abaddon reminded them otherwise. He led the first Black Crusade like a scalpel to the throat of the galaxy. Not to conquer. No, that was not the goal. Not yet. The goal was resurrection. Horus' body had been interred on the demon world of Malium, enshrined by the twisted remnants of the sons of Horus. They had grown pathetic, cowards clinging to a corpse, worshipping failure. Abaddon carved his way through them. He shattered the war bands who dared mock the name of Luna Wolves. He desecrated their false shrines. He burned the last remnants of Horus' body, reduced him to ash with the same hatred he once reserved for the Emperor. It was not cruelty. It was freedom. The past would not bind him. The Long War was no longer Horus' crusade. It was his. From that moment, the Black Legion was born anew, not as remnants, not as traitors, but as something worse, a force with purpose, unchained by nostalgia, bound only by vengeance. He painted his warriors' armor in black, the color of death. He took no Primarch's name, claimed no father's shadow. Abaddon would not be a son. He would be the storm that kills kings. The second and third Black Crusades were deeper, more ambitious. No longer strikes of retribution, but campaigns of manipulation and erosion. He didn't just strike planets. He poisoned systems. He spread heresy in whispers. Cults rose like tumors across imperial worlds, worshipping ruin beneath cathedrals, carving 8-pointed stars beneath the Aquila. Administrative officials went mad. Planetary governors turned their PDF against their own people. Faith rotted. Trust crumbled. Abaddon didn't always need a sword. Sometimes he just needed a mirror held up to mankind's own emptiness. By the time the Fourth Black Crusade came, entire sectors were already bleeding from within. That crusade gave the galaxy a new name to dread: Talos. It was the Black Legion's prophets who began preaching the truth of the Long War. Not a war for land or gods, a war for the soul of reality. And then came the Fifth. Abaddon's forces struck with terrifying precision. Forged worlds were targeted, not merely for destruction, but for technology. He did not waste blood for nothing. Every invasion was a theft. Every retreat, a gain. He claimed warp engines, archaeotech, forbidden weaponry that should never have existed. The Imperium didn't realize it then, but he was preparing for something. A pattern, a ritual of campaigns, each one adding to a vast, invisible machinery of doom. Each crusade a piece of a puzzle, each battle lost by design. Because you cannot see the true war while you're bleeding from 1,000 cuts. The Sixth Black Crusade was barely a whisper. It came and went. Some Imperials even mocked it, but that was Abaddon's genius. He let them believe it. In that crusade, he did not conquer planets. He corrupted navigators. He turned rogue traders, silenced astropaths, corrupted warp routes. 1,000 new pathways were opened into the Imperium's underbelly, and no one noticed until it was far too late. By the seventh, worlds had begun vanishing. Entire populations gone. No war, no warning, just silence. The Imperium sent investigation fleets. Only a few returned. What they saw: a Black Legion fleet orbiting dead stars, planetary corpses stripped of biomass, cultists wearing the skins of their enemies, and one name whispered through static: Abaddon. The Eighth Black Crusade marked a terrifying shift. No longer surgical strikes. It was wrath incarnate. 1 billion cultists surged from a maelstrom and the Eye of Terror. War bands once fractured were now united. Under the claw, under the blade, the warp surged. Rifts opened where once were only scars. The galaxy groaned under the pressure. Abaddon didn't just bring the gods with him. He brought hell. Imperial defenders were overwhelmed not by strength, but by coordination. Something no traitor legion had managed in 10,000 years. The Black Legion, the Word Bearers, Iron Warriors, even splinters of the Death Guard, fighting as one, not out of faith, but out of fear. Abaddon was no longer a warlord. He was inevitable. And then came the Ninth Black Crusade, the one that changed everything. The planet of Medusa V was the stage, a dying world, caught in the gravitational ruin of a collapsing star. Everyone knew it would die. The Imperium, Chaos, the Xenos. But Abaddon didn't come to claim it. He came to show something. As the world tore itself apart, as 1 million lives died screaming in fire, Abaddon transmitted one message to the High Lords of Terra. This is your future. You live in denial. I live in truth. I do not need to conquer. I only need time, and you have none left. He was right. The Imperium was cracking. Too many wars. Too many lies. Too much silence in the warp. The 10th Black Crusade was less a war and more a feast. The Black Legion descended upon weak sectors like carrion birds. They didn't even bother finishing their prey. It was about speed, about signals, a warning to the galaxy. The Despoiler is coming, ready or not. And then the 13th, the final gambit, the Black Crusade that shattered Cadia. Yes, there was an 11th, a 12th, smaller flames in the dark, but they were only echoes of the storm to come. The 13th Black Crusade would not be a raid. It would be an end, The Eye of Terror widened. The warp boiled. The Great Rift was coming. And at the center of it, aboard the vengeful spirit, surrounded by the damned, stood a man in black armor, his eyes burning with hatred older than empires. Not a demon, not a puppet, a man, a memory made flesh. Abaddon the Despoiler, the hammer that breaks reality. Some worlds die in silence. Cadia died screaming, but it did not beg. It stared into the abyss and made the abyss bleed. There are few names in Imperial history carved with such bitter reverence as Cadia. The gate, the bulwark, the world that stood in defiance against the Eye of Terror for 10 millennia. A sentinel on the edge of madness, daring the demons and traitors of the warp to come and break themselves upon its black stone walls. It was not beauty that defined Cadia, nor peace. It was discipline, resolve. From the moment a child could walk, they were taught to hold a lost gun. From the moment they could speak, they were told of chaos, not as myth, as truth, as a storm forever, waiting at the edge of the stars. Every Cadian knew they were born to die in service of something greater. And when the 13th Black Crusade came, they did. Abaddon did not strike like a scalpel this time. There was no subtlety, no deception. He came with everything. The warp cracked. The Eye of Terror pulsed like a bleeding wound, and from it surged the largest chaos armada the galaxy had seen since the Siege of Terra. War bands, demons, dark mechanicum constructs, demonic engines, warp-mutated beasts, cultists in the billions, and at the center, the vengeful spirit, black and burning like a godless sun. Cadia met the storm head-on. The Cadian gate lit up with void shields and defense grids. Every orbital gun, every bastion, every fortress was manned. The Imperium, for once, understood the stakes. Reinforcements poured in, regiments of Astra Militarum, Scutarii from Mars, even Space Marine chapters from across the segmentum. It would not be enough. Not against him. Abaddon did not just want to kill Cadia. He wanted to erase it, to burn the idea that anything could stand against chaos. He brought with him the Blackstone fortresses, ancient weapons of unknowable origin, reclaimed during earlier crusades, world killers, planet renders, and with them, he made war not just on Cadia's body, but its soul. With the fortresses, Abaddon shattered orbital defenses like paper. Cities burned from the sky downward. Fleets exploded before they could form battle lines. But Cadia did not break. The Cadians never broke. The defenders fought street by street, trench by trench, even as orbital stations fell, even as demons swarmed the void, even as the Black Legion made landfall in towering drop pods wreathed in fire and blasphemy. Still, the defenders fought. They held, and that was a problem, because Abaddon had not come for a fair fight. He had come with a weapon no fortress could defy, a blackstone fortress called Will of Eternity. Turned into a divine hammer, he crashed it into Cadia's surface. Not in war, in judgment. The crust shattered, oceans boiled, continents fell into the mantle. The very world broke beneath its defenders. And even then, Cadia still did not die. Its defenders rallied around the last fortress stronghold, Kazarkrof. Bombed, shattered, encircled, they held the line with lost guns' fists, prayers, curses. They fought not for victory, but for defiance. Because in their minds, if Cadia fell screaming, then it never truly fell. That is what broke Abaddon's patience. He gave a final order, the destruction of the pylons. The pylons of Cadia were ancient Xeno structures, older than humanity, older than the Imperium itself. They held back the warp, formed a lattice of psychic dampening that stopped the Eye of Terror from consuming the Segmentum Obscurus entirely. They were not understood. But Abaddon understood one thing. If the pylons fell, reality would bleed. And so he fired the Planet Killer weapons one last time. The pylons fractured. The barrier holding the Eye of Terror collapsed. And the galaxy screamed. They call it the cicatrix male dictum, the Great Rift, a wound in real space. So vast, it split the galaxy in two. Where once was night, now there was madness. Whole sectors vanished in warp storms. Astronomican signals were devoured. Entire forge worlds, hive planets. Shrine worlds were cut off. isolated in an ocean of demons and heresy. And at the center of it all, Abaddon stood victorious, not just over Cadia, but over reality itself. The survivors? Few. Fleet Primaris, under command of Lord Castellan Creed, fled into the void, bearing what relics and soldiers they could save. The price was horrifying. Creed stayed behind, fought until the very last second. When the Imperium asked what happened to Cadia, the answer echoed through a billion voxcasters. Cadia stands. Not stood. Stands. Because even in death, its legacy is a weapon, a symbol of defiance. But that's the problem with symbols. They are not enough to stop what comes next. The Imperium did not just lose a world at Cadia. It lost balance. The galaxy shifted. Old maps became lies. Warp travel became a gamble with demons. Astropaths wept blood. Faith faltered. The Emperor's light grew dim. And through the wound he carved in the stars, Abaddon stepped forward, not as a shadow of Horus, not as a pawn of chaos, but as the voice of the Long War, the general of the apocalypse, the god-killer in waiting. The Imperium had forgotten what fear truly was. Abaddon reminded them, there is a truth the Imperium cannot face, that the Despoiler was once their finest son, that the same fire that warms loyalty can burn a galaxy to ash. Before the scars, before the Black Crusades, before the Demon Blade and the Storm of Worlds, there was just a boy bred for war, forged beneath the steel moons of Chthoniya. Chthoniya, long destroyed, long forgotten, a hollow world gutted by mines and cruelty. Its people were not raised, they survived. There were no soft words, no innocence, only hard choices, sharp blades, and lessons written in blood. It was here that Ezekiel Abaddon was born, not to privilege, not to greatness, but to rage. And in that rage, the Emperor saw something useful. The Lunar Wolves were among the Emperor's most prized legions. They embodied unity, swiftness, ferocity. Their pre-march, Horus Lupercal, was a warlord without equal, beloved by his brothers, trusted above all. He did not rule the Lunar Wolves with fear. He inspired them, and no one was inspired more than Abaddon. From the moment he was uplifted, turned from mortal flesh into Astartes, Abaddon rose with terrifying speed, not because he was the smartest, not the most graceful, but because he was unbreakable. Every defeat he endured, every scar he carried as proof. He became first captain, Horus' voice when the pre-march was silent, his fury when restraint failed. In the words of some, Abaddon was Horus' shadow, but they were wrong. He was his reflection. There was love there, a loyalty deeper than gene seed, stronger than fate. Horus saw in Abaddon the echo of his own ambition. Abaddon saw in Horus something to believe in. Together, they conquered worlds, crushed rebellions, broke tyrants, and uplifted broken peoples. But beneath that glory, something always stirred. A bitterness, a hunger. Abaddon saw how the Imperium treated its sons, how the Emperor sent them to die in silence, how he praised unity but sowed division, how he claimed divinity was a lie, yet demanded obedience like a god. The hypocrisy festered. And when Horus was wounded on Davin, when the Chaos gods whispered, Abaddon listened. He did not fall by accident. He chose to follow Horus into heresy, not because he was tricked, but because he believed the Imperium needed to be torn down, believed that Horus could do what the Emperor could not. The heresy was not madness to him. It was clarity. And when terror burned, when brother fought brother beneath the golden towers of humanity's last hope, Abaddon did not hesitate. He led charge after charge, breaking the shield of imperial fists, killing former comrades by the dozen, because he believed that the end justified the cost. But the end never came. Horus died, and with him, something inside Abaddon broke. The war was over, but the vision was dead. Worse, The Chaos gods had used Horus, turned him into a vessel, a weapon, then discarded him. When Abaddon saw the corpse of his pre-march, soulless, silent, empty, he saw the truth. Chaos lies, and so does the Emperor. Neither side deserved victory, so he would give them both what they deserved. War eternal. This is what sets Abaddon apart. He does not serve chaos blindly. He does not pray. He uses chaos, knowing full well we use him in return. He rejects apotheosis. He does not become a demon prince. He remains mortal to remember what it is to hate, to bleed, to will, because a god forgets. But a man remembers, and Abaddon remembers everything. He remembers how the Imperium discarded its heroes, how the Emperor sent his sons to die, then sat upon a throne of silence, how Acadia defied him, how it crumbled. He remembers the lies spoken in the name of truth, the worship of a corpse, and in that memory he finds his fire. What drives a man for 10,000 years? Not hunger, not power, but vengeance. Abaddon does not want to rule the Imperium. He wants to end it, wipe clean the slate of history, let the galaxy bleed, and from the ruins, maybe, just maybe, something real can be born, something unchained, something free. That is why he inspires fear not just in the Imperium, but in his own allies, because even the gods do not truly control him. They need him, but they cannot own him. His rivals, Typhus of the Death Guard, Karn Betrayer, Lucius the Eternal, they are relics, champions of slaughter and decay. But Abaddon is a vision, a unifying force in a realm built on madness. His will bend traitor legions into alignment. His voice silences demons. His plans unravel centuries of imperial fortifications in weeks. Because he never stops. He never sleeps. He never forgets. The Imperium calls him a monster. The Eye of Terror calls him Warmaster. The gods call him chosen. But in truth, he is a man who refused to kneel, a memory with a sword, a shadow that learned to cast its own light, and the light he casts burns worlds to ash. They say the Black Legion is an army of traitors. They're wrong. It is a choir of vengeance, and Abaddon is its only voice. There is no legion in the galaxy quite like the Black Legion, born from the ashes of disgrace, forged in denial, tempered by 10,000 years of hate. Once, they were the Lunar Wolves, first among equals, proud, shining, loyal. Then the sons of Horus, fanatical, driven, corrupted. And finally, when shame could no longer be buried under paint and pageantry, they became something new, the Black Legion. Unchained, unnamed, unforgiven, but in their darkness, they found freedom. And at the heart of that transformation stood one man, one warlord, one truth made flesh. Abaddon, after the heresy, after the flight into the Eye of Terror, the traitor legions fractured. Some gave in to madness. Others became empires of flesh and blood, feasting on whatever remained. Many simply turned on each other, warring for scraps, for pride, for lies. But the remnants of the sons of Horus, they did worse. They stagnated. They wandered in shame, broken and divided. Their identity was tied too tightly to Horus, and with him dead, erased even from the warp, their purpose rotted. They renamed themselves a Abaddon's children, in whispers, a mockery that cut deeper than any blade. That is the legacy Abaddon inherited. Not glory, not power, but failure. And he rejected it with fire. The turning point came with the assault on Malium, a demon world, once a shrine to Horus, now a prison of weakness. Abaddon did not mourn. He did not kneel before the corpse of the Warmaster. He burned it. He scattered Horus' ashes into the warp and crushed the shrine beneath his boot. This was not betrayal. It was freedom. The past had no more chains. The dead had no more claims. From now on, the Legion would follow only him, and those who would not, he purged them. The birth of the Black Legion was not poetic. It was brutal. Warband after warband fell beneath Abaddon's advance. Some he conquered, others he absorbed. He made examples of dissenters, shattered false prophets, slaughtered warlords who clung too tightly to the old ways. But more than fear, he offered something no other warlord could: purpose. In a galaxy choked with meaningless violence, the Black Legion had a goal. The Long War, not a campaign, not a raid, but a spiritual war for the soul of mankind. And they would fight it not in chains, not as remnants of a failed past, but as reborn warriors, sons of no one. He reforged their colors. The green and gold of the sons of Horus became jet black and burning brass, not to hide from shame, to own it. They were not fallen. They were freed. Black armor, black ships, black flags, silent testaments to the truth that death is not the end. It is the beginning. And wherever that black tide rolled, worlds trembled, because the Black Legion does not conquer to rule. It conquers to unmake. Yet within the Black Legion, not all serve blindly. They are not like the Death Guard, lost to entropy, not like the Emperor's children, consumed by excess, not like the World Eaters, slaves to rage. The Black Legion thinks. It plans. It hunts. It is a machine of war as complex as any Mechanicus Forge world. There are sorcerers whose whispers fracture planets, strategists who spend centuries positioning assets across star systems, demon engines leashed by rituals older than memory, captains born in the void, raised by pain, loyal only to Abaddon's word, and all of it moves at his command. But there are others who still test him, other warlords, other champions. Typhus of Nurgle, who spreads pestilence like sermons. Karn the Betrayer, whose axe speaks louder than reason. Lucius the Eternal, obsessed with vanity and vengeance. Fabius Bile, the twisted apothecary. Each thinks themselves equal. Each tests Abaddon's rule, and each in time bows or bleeds. Because Abaddon understands what they do not. Unity is the greatest weapon in the galaxy, and unity demands will. He does not rule by charm. He does not inspire love. He rules by inevitability. And when you stand before the Talon of Horus, when the demon blade Drachnian whispers at your soul, when the Eye of Terror howls your name through the stars, you understand that to defy Abaddon is not bravery. It is suicide. Even among the gods, he walks a knife's edge. The ruinous powers, Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, Slaanesh, each want him for their own. Each offers gifts, immortality, power, ascension, but Abaddon refuses. He will not become a demon prince. He will not be owned. He takes their power when it suits him. He sacrifices when it benefits his cause. But in the end, he serves no one, and they hate him for it. But they need him more, because while the gods fight their endless games, Abaddon wins wars. So the Black Legion grows, not in numbers, but in meaning. Where it marches, resistance crumbles. Where it speaks, heresy awakens. Where it kills, empires fall. And it all spirals around one unbending will. Abaddon, not a relic, not a servant, not even a traitor anymore, but a harbinger, a blade forged in failure, reforged in purpose. And the galaxy has no answer for him, because you can fight a man, you can defy a demon, but how do you fight meaning? It is not a sword, it is not even a weapon. It is a thought made flesh, a whisper given fangs, a question that cannot be unasked. What if every act of murder had a soul? Of all the cursed things Abaddon has claimed in his long and blood-blackened life, none are feared more than a blade he carries at his side. Drachnin, its name is not a title. It is a curse. It does not simply cut flesh. It does not simply slay. It undoes. The blade is older than mankind's first breath. It was not forged by hands, not born in flame or shaped by artisans. It was born in the warp, in the first murder's echo, in the moment when one sentient being ended another not for hunger or survival, but for hate. It is the very concept of killing given form. And when Abaddon claimed it, he did not tame it. He bargained. The origins of Drachnian are cloaked in myth. Some say it lay beneath the Black Tower in Yurlin, a forgotten fortress at the heart of a nameless demon world. Others whisper it was the first blade ever born of chaos itself. The truth is unknowable, because truth dies in the warp. What is known is this: no mortal had ever wielded it and lived. Many tried. Sorcerers, champions, demon princes, all were consumed, eaten for the inside out, their souls digested by the sword's endless hunger. Drachnian is not a tool. It is not used. It uses. And yet Abaddon took it. He walked into the tower, alone, through a warp storm that tore minds apart. Demons screamed his name in fear. The tower changed with every breath. Walls shifting, ceilings turning into skies, doors becoming mouths. Reality bled, but he did not break, because Abaddon's will is not like other men's. He does not yield to terror. He does not kneel to hunger. When he found the blade, it spoke to him, not in words, but in questions. It showed in the galaxy unmade, planets burning, saints weeping, empires bleeding into the void. And it asked, "Is this what you want?" Abaddon answered, "Yes." He lifted the sword. The screams began. Reality convulsed. But he did not fall. The blade did not accept him. It did not possess him. They made a pact. He would wield Drachnian not as a servant, not as a puppet, but as an equal. He would feed it souls, and in return it would cut not just bodies, but meaning. Kill with it, and the death echoes in the warp for eternity. Strike with it, and the wound does not heal, not in flesh, not in spirit. It is a conceptual weapon, a blade that kills ideas. And in the hands of the Despoiler, it has never been sheathed. Its form changes, sometimes a sword, sometimes a spear, sometimes a writhing chain of living hunger. Whatever it becomes, it is always perfect, always lethal. It drinks the essence of whatever it kills. It grows stronger with every soul. It remembers. It hungers. But it does not control him. Because Abaddon is more terrifying than the blade. He is the will that holds it. On the battlefield, when Drachnian is drawn, reality bends. Psychic shields fail. Astartes fall to their knees, vomiting blood. Demons recoil. Even machines, cold, unthinking, shudder as something deep and unknowable claws at their spirit. Because the blade doesn't kill you with steel. It kills you with certainty. The certainty that this is the end. That your story stops here. That no God is listening. That death is not a doorway. It is a lock. When Cadia burned, it was Drachnian that carved through the void shields. When Creed made his last stand, it was Drachnian that bled to reality, making sure his name would echo forever in pain. When the Rift was born, it was Drachnian that screamed alongside the warp storm, a laugh of death echoing across 10,000 light years. And yet, it remains silent on Abaddon's side when he chooses it to be, because he does not draw it for glory, only for purpose. This, more than anything, is what separates him from the demon princes and warlords who lust for power. He does not feed the blade to please it. He feeds it only when necessary. He uses its hunger like a knife uses the wind. And that is why the blade fears him. Some wonder why Abaddon does not wield two weapons. Why he does not abandon Horus Talon. Why he does not dual-wield devastation. But those who ask such questions do not understand balance. Drachnian is chaos incarnate. The Talon of Horus is memory made steel. One represents the old path, blood and betrayal. The other, the new, destruction and evolution. Together, they do not just make a weapon. They make a philosophy, a creed carved into the bones of dying worlds. So when you hear the whisper in the warp, when your blood runs cold and your thoughts begin to fray, when your name fades from your own lips and you forget why you were fighting, know this: he has drawn the blade, and it is too late. You are no longer a person. You are just another story that ends in a scream. We speak of legacies like they are holy, but in Abaddon's hand, legacy is a weapon, and in that weapon beats the heart of treachery. It is not just a claw. It is not just war gear or armor or inheritance. The Talon of Horus is a relic soaked in betrayal, tempered by ambition and reborn through hate. Its blades once tore through loyalists in the name of a better Imperium. It gouged wounds in the Emperor's angels. It drew blood on Terra's sacred soil. It is the hand that killed hope, and Abaddon wields it as both warning and promise. In the last hours of the siege of Terra, aboard the vengeful spirit, Horus stood at the apex of rebellion. The Warmaster, once loved beyond all reason, now twisted into something both glorious and horrifying. His final battle with the Emperor is legend, but when the corpse of Horus lay broken and obliterated, his soul annihilated, his dream burned to ash, there remained fragments, bones, blood, and armor. Abaddon took the claw, not as keepsake, as statement. He did not grieve, he remembered. The Talon is more than a weapon. It is a gauntlet of ancient design, fitted with lightning-charged talons, each one capable of shredding ceramite like parchment. Twin-barrel bolters crown its wrist, modified over centuries to fire unrelenting death. But its power is not just in function. It is in meaning. This claw was once the instrument of the galaxy's greatest betrayal, and Abaddon now wears it not to honor Horus, but to surpass him. There is irony in its weight. Horus wore it at his highest. Abaddon bears it at his lowest and most dangerous. To many, it is a cursed relic. To him, it is a reminder of failure, of weakness, of promises unkept, but also of what could have been. It digs into his flesh, not because it must, but because he wants it to. Pain is memory, and memory is power. Where Drachnian is warp-born, seething, unstable, the Talon is real, solid, brutal, cold. When Abaddon fights with both, he does not just wage war, he tells a story. One hand shreds history, the other tears the future, and those caught between, they never have time to understand before they die. Every enemy who sees the Talon knows what it means. They remember the visions of Horus tearing through the Emperor's palace. They remember the heresy. They remember failure. But that's the difference between Horus and Abaddon. Horus failed once, spectacularly. Finally, Abaddon fails forward. Every campaign, every wound, every near death, it all becomes another brick in his throne of defiance. And the Talon of Horus is his scepter of denial. He does not wield it as heir. He wields it as conqueror. When the Talon strikes, it leaves more than torn armor and dead men. It leaves questions. What if the Warmaster had lived? What if Terra had fallen? What if the Emperor had died and stayed dead? And most dangerous of all, what if Horus was right? Abaddon never answers. He only slashes. The Talon has seen the blood of loyalists and traitors alike. It ripped through Ultramarines on Mordax. It gouged Space Wolves during the raids on Fenris Outer Moons. It buried itself in the hearts of Inquisitors, Tech Priests, Saints, and even fellow Chaos Lords who thought to challenge him. Each soul torn is another voice silenced, another stone on the path to the end of the Imperium. Some have tried to steal it, Fools. One warlord, Siren the Redeemer, declared it a relic too sacred to remain in traitor hands. He launched a crusade to claim it. His flagship was turned into a cathedral of screams. The Talon tore his relic blade in half. Siren's skull was left in a warp-locked reliquary, where it still weeps blood once per Terran cycle, such as the fate of those who confuse history for authority. Even the Chaos gods, whose gifts Abaddon wields with careful disdain, have attempted to whisper through the Talon, to reclaim it, to warp it, but he does not let them. He allows the claw to burn in dark fire, to blaze with power but never to speak, because he does not share his voice. He does not share his will. The Talon of Horus is his now, and it obeys him because it has no choice. So when you see the black figure upon the battlefield, the one who leads with silence and kills with certainty, when you glimpse the claws that tore hope from the galaxy's heart, you are not looking at history. You are looking at its executioner. The Talon of Horus lives, and through it, so does the end of everything. Empires rise. Faith is born. Stars ignite. And still, the long war rages, because truth has no end, only echoes. To understand Abaddon, you must understand his war. Not a campaign, not a series of conquests, but a philosophy carved into the marrow of time itself. The Long War. It began the day Horus fell. It is not ended, and it never will, until the Imperium is ash, the lie of the Emperor is broken, and the galaxy knows the true cost of betrayal. But make no mistake, this is not vengeance. It is justice, sharpened into eternal purpose. The galaxy thought it had won, when the heresy failed, when the Warmaster lay dead, and the Emperor ascended his golden throne. The Loyalists called it victory, but that was the first illusion Abaddon shattered, because the Imperium did not win. It survived, broken, paranoid, paralyzed. It traded truth for dogma. Humanity cowered behind fortress walls and forgot it had once dreamed. And Abaddon saw the rot for what it was. So he swore an oath, not to chaos, not to glory, but to war without end. A war that would grind the Imperium into understanding. A war that would kill its gods. Every Black Crusade has been a verse in that eternal song. Not failures. Steps. You do not tear down an empire in a single blow. You erode it. You hollow its faith. You fracture its borders. You turn its saints into monsters and its heroes into memories. Abaddon does not seek quick victories. He seeks decay, and in that slow rot, his victory is already unfolding. The Long War is psychological. It is spiritual. It does not conquer planets for resources. It conquers ideas. On world after world, Abaddon's forces leave behind more than ruin. They leave questions. What if the Emperor lies? What if the ecclesiarchy is wrong? What if obedience is a true heresy? Those questions echo. They grow. And as they do, the Imperium weakens not by blade but by doubt. And the Despoiler knows. He plays the long game better than any demon, any inquisitor, any living mind. He sows cults in administrative archives. He whispers into the dreams of navigators. He funds rebellions that have no connection to chaos, only to instability. Because every inch of disorder chips away at the illusion of imperial strength. And once the illusion is gone, so is resistance. Even his defeats are illusions. When a crusade is halted, when a planet resists, when a fleet is repelled, Abaddon does not rage. He calculates. What was learned? What was broken? What wound was open that will bleed centuries from now? Because the Long War is not measured in battles. It is measured in consequences. And in this war, time is his ally. The Imperium must protect 10,000 fronts, uphold 10,000 lies, maintain 1 billion systems that crack beneath the weight of bureaucracy, mutation, rebellion, and faith. Abaddon needs only one weakness at a time. One gate, one pylon, one victory that matters. And when it comes, the Imperium learns, too late, that it never understood the battlefield, because while they counted skulls, he counted fractures. Even his own allies are weapons in this war, not in loyalty, in function. The word-bearers spread corruption in worship. The Night Lords spread terror in silence. The Iron Warriors break walls the Imperium thought eternal. The Alpha Legion, well, no one ever truly knows what they do. And the Black Legion unites it all, not with faith but with purpose. Their banner does not proclaim chaos. It proclaims inevitability. The Long War is not just for the galaxy. It's for the warp. The Chaos Gods bicker, war, twist, and consume. But even they grow stronger through Abaddon's strategy. He expands the Eye of Terror. He bleeds real space into unreality. He makes belief burn. And in doing so, strengthens the very entities he refuses to kneel to. They reward him with gifts, with armies, with visions, and he takes them. But he never trusts them, because in his war, even the gods are pieces on the board. Some say the Long War is madness, a goal too vast, too slow, too endless. But they forget, Abaddon is eternal. He is not mortal, not in will. He watches centuries pass like hours. He lets planets live, so they may rot from within. He lets saints rise, so their fall is more devastating. And every time the Imperium believes has found hope, he tightens the noose. The rift was not the end of his plan. It was the beginning. Now, the galaxy is divided. Communication shattered. Faith falters. Even Gilliman walks the stars again, not as salvation, but as desperation. And the Despoiler waits, watching, preparing, for the moment the Long War becomes the last war. This is why Abaddon cannot be killed by bolter or blade, because he is not just a man. He is a confession, a truth that the Imperium has spent 10,000 years trying to deny. And as long as that truth endures, so will he. Every age fears its dusk, but Abaddon does not bring dusk. He brings midnight. The 13th Black Crusade did not end with Cadia's fall. It began with it, when the pylons broke and the Eye of Terror exploded outward like a wound torn through creation. Something ancient screamed in the warp, a scream of birth, of death, of change. The cicatrix male dictum, the Great Rift, split the galaxy in two, and from that chasm, chaos howled. Abaddon's hand was upon the very structure of reality, not just war, not just blood, but physics, time, truth. He had not simply attacked Cadia. He had used the destruction to shatter the veil between dimensions. No one in the Imperium foresaw it. No one could. Even now, 10,000 psychers dream of that day and wake up broken. The Imperium reeled. Half of mankind was cut off from Terra. Entire sectors drowned in warp storms. Warp travel became a gamble with death. Astropaths burned out their eyes. Worlds that had never known fear were suddenly swallowed by unreality. It was not just a strategic blow. It was spiritual. Faith faltered. Orders broke. The Astronomicon dimmed. And in the silence, Abaddon's voice rose like a chant of finality. Not just a conqueror now, but a harbinger. The Black Legion surged through the rift. No longer confined by imperial borders, no longer playing the old games. They slipped through shattered warp lanes, using the madness to scatter their strength, to see destruction in 1,000 places. Gilliman's return changed little, because the Despoiler had already moved beyond mere resistance. He had reshaped the board. No longer did war flow from singular fronts. It came in layers, from real space and the warp, from demons and men, from memory and myth. And the Imperium began to realize something horrifying. There was no longer a safe place to stand. The Indomitus Crusade marched under banners of hope, lit by the fires of Guilliman's fury. The pre-march returned, shining in the Emperor's name. But Abaddon was ready. He had prepared centuries for this. Gathered weapons, gathered alliances, made war not on flesh, but on structure. He let Guilliman reclaim worlds, because every victory cost the Imperium more than it could afford. Hope is the most expensive currency in a dying empire, and the Despoiler knew how to bankrupt it. In the Rift's wake, new allies came, not out of loyalty, but opportunity. The Crimson Slaughter, the Scourged, warbands once deemed too mad, too divergent, now follow the Black Legion into the void, not as subordinates, but as tools. Abaddon did not demand obedience. He demanded results. And he gave his followers what no demon prince, no dark apostle, no warlord could. Purpose. You did not join him to survive. You joined him to matter. As Guilliman fought to mend the Imperium, Abaddon was already carving into its flesh again. The Noctis Aedina, the time of darkness following the Rift, gave him more than advantage. It gave him myth. On 1,000 worlds, people began to speak his name in fear, in awe, in reverence. Not just as a warlord, not just as a legend, but as a force of nature. A being who defied the Emperor, denied the gods, conquered time, a shadow that knew its name. And he was not done. The Rift is still expanding, not physically, but spiritually. The longer it exists, the more it feeds on fear, chaos, uncertainty. Abaddon knows he cannot kill the Emperor, not yet, but he can starve him. He can make faith a question, not a shield. And every soul that doubts is a victory. The Imperium answers with silence, censorship, martyrdom. But even martyrs burn, even saints fall, and when they do, the Despoiler's voice waits in the ashes. You were never saved, you were only delayed. The long war continues, but now it bleeds into reality itself, and the galaxy has begun to understand. Abaddon was never trying to be Horus. He was trying to be something greater, the beginning of the end, the echo that becomes the scream. He does not want a throne. He wants a grave, the galaxy's grave, and in that silence, his name will be the last word ever spoken. What does Abaddon the Despoiler truly want? Not power, not worship, not immortality. He has turned down all three. The Chaos gods have offered him demonhood, eternal life, dominion, the power to shape reality with a thought. He refuses, not out of pride, but out of conviction, because gods forget, mortals remember, and Abaddon's purpose must remember. He does not want to rule the Imperium. He wants to end it, to tear down every lie, every golden edifice, every shrine and cathedral built on bones and delusion. He wants to see the Emperor dead, not slain in battle, but forgotten, buried beneath so many screams that his light becomes a myth. Because for Abaddon, there is no redemption, only correction. What is his endgame? It is not conquest. It is not chaos. It is truth. A galaxy without the Emperor, without the High Lords, without faith, without chains. A galaxy where humanity must face itself and choose whether to rise or die. That is the future he fights for, and he knows it may never come. But he does not need to see it. He only needs to make it possible. There is a quiet horror in his strategy. He does not desire to be remembered. He does not carve his name across planets. He leaves ruin, not legacy, because ego is a leash. And Abaddon broke his chains long ago. He is not chaos incarnate. He is chaos focused. And focus is what kills empires. The Imperium fears his blade, his armies, his dark fleet. But what it should fear is his patience. For every crusade he launches, another 5 are in motion, unseen, unspoken. For every fortress he breaks, He plants seeds of rot in 3 more. He fights in time, not just space. He bleeds the future dry, and he never rests, because there is no peace in his heart, only momentum. And what if he dies? What if one day some loyalist champion strikes him down? What then? Then he wins, because Abaddon does not believe in endings. He believes in continuity. The long war is not just his. It is ours. His death would be a signal. His body, a banner. The Black Legion would not scatter. They would become worse, more fervent, more focused, because they would no longer follow a man. They would follow a truth. This is why he is more dangerous than Horus, more feared than demon princes, more enduring than any chapter master or inquisitor, because he understands the game, and he refuses to play by its rules. He makes his own. Even Gilliman sees it now. The pre-march walks the stars, shining like ancient memory. But every world he saves, Abaddon has already touched. Every crusade he launches, Abaddon has already calculated. They are not at war in space. They are at war in meaning. One fighting to preserve a lie, the other to expose it. And in the end, even if the Emperor rises from his throne and speaks again, it may not be enough, because Abaddon has already taught the galaxy how to question. And once questions begin, truth must answer. He does not know peace. He does not want it. He only wants the war to end on his terms. And if that means burning reality to cinders, then so be it. Because for Abaddon the Despoiler, only one truth remains. If the galaxy must suffer, let it suffer honestly. Closing summary. So now you understand. Abaddon is not just a villain, not a warlord, not a puppet, not the second coming of Horus. He is a correction to 10,000 years of lies. He is the will that will not kneel, the vengeance that never sleeps, the hate that remembers. He is a despoiler, the Warmaster of Chaos, the end of empires. And as long as the galaxy spins, his war will go on, not to conquer it, but to end it forever.